Well, okay. In the last class, we have discussed about the meaning of historiography as well as the nature and scope of history. Well, is there everybody is from English medium? Is there anybody who is from Hindi medium? Hindi medium से कोई है? आकाश? आकाश जायसवाल?
No, sir.
आप इंग्लिश मीडियम से हिंदी मीडियम से?
I am from English medium, sir.
English medium. Okay. Annie is from English medium. Milinji is English medium. Triveni? Triveni Nehare, are you from English medium or Hindi medium?
Yes, sir, from English medium.
Okay, fine, fine. So if somebody from Hindi medium joins, they can just remind me so that I will be bilingual. Well, okay. So today we are going to discuss about the auxiliary sciences of history. So what does that mean? What is the meaning of the word auxiliary? See, auxiliary is something that is supportive. For example, we have a main industry and we have auxiliary industry. For example, car manufacturing might be the main industry, and then you have some auxiliary industry like tire manufacturing or accessories that is required for the car. These are called auxiliaries, so which supports the complete making of the car. Similarly, there are certain sciences, certain subjects which act as a kind of auxiliary to the understanding of history. So we need to understand history. That is the basic main core thrust area of our study. But in order to make that understanding better, we have certain subjects, we have certain disciplines which in a way strengthen our understanding of history. For example, if we want to understand history from the coins, then for the study of the coin, an independent branch of study have developed that is called numismatics. नाणे शास्त्र कहते हैं उसको हिंदी में. Similarly, if you want to understand history from the archaeological remain, there is a different branch called archaeology. For example, if I am a student of history, it's quite possible that I may not be a trained archaeologist, but in order to have an understanding of my area of research, for example, if I am working on Mahabharata, let us say, and if there are any archaeological remains on Mahabharata are being found, I may not be able to understand and interpret those archaeological remains and findings. And then, you can take the help of those trained archaeologists who will be able to dig out. There is a systematic method of digging out the thing. For example, if I am not trained archaeologist, so if I just go and start digging at the site, it's quite possible that I may end up destroying those remains because those are buried under the earth, and there is a systematic technique to very carefully excavate and understand the ancient remains without creating any significant damage to those remains. So all those subjects which help us in understanding history in a better manner are generally called auxiliary sciences. There are allied sciences as well. There are two kind of subjects that generally enhances our understanding of history. What I'm speaking, is it clearly audible to you? It may take a few days for me to feel very comfortable because none of you are visible to me. If you can, please switch on your video. Well, friends, so there are two kind of subjects that contribute to our understanding of history in a better manner. That is called allied sciences and auxiliary sciences. Now, sometimes certain subjects are mentioned as allied sciences somewhere, they are mentioned as auxiliary sciences somewhere. What is the difference between these two? In a nutshell, allied sciences, apart from making our understanding of history better, they have also developed their own independent branch of study. They also have their own independent branch of studies. For example, take the case of political science. Political science is one of the allied science of history because understanding of the political structure, which broadly comes under the jurisdiction of political science, help us to understand history in a better manner. What kind of question? Go ahead. Well, okay. Well, friends, so there are certain sciences which are called allied sciences, and there are certain sciences which are called auxiliary sciences. And allied sciences, as I was telling you, apart from helping us in our understanding of history in a better manner, they also have their own branches of study and like economics or political science. Poonam, you are from English medium, right? Poonam Gambhir? Well, okay. So, they have developed their own independent branch of studies, but they do help us in understanding history in a better manner. For example, I was talking about political science. The political science, the knowledge of political science enable us to understand the political structure in a better manner. And if you have some knowledge about the political science, political structure, what is the meaning of democracy, what is the meaning of aristocracy, what is the meaning of monarchical system, what are the advantages and disadvantages of the monarchical system, what are the advantages and disadvantages of the democratic system. These are the general topics which are dealt by political scientists, by the student of political science. But if you are exposed to that kind of knowledge, or if you have understanding of the nature of the political structure, that will enable us to understand history in a better manner. And that is the reason it is called allied sciences. All right. So let us, I'll share my Word file with you. Just a minute. Hold on. Well, well, okay, fine. So, this is, I hope you are able to see the Word file and me as well. Well, so this is a which I have already explained. The allied and auxiliary sciences. These are the two kind of subject which support the understanding of history. Allied, they have developed. They also have an independent branch of studies. And auxiliary, they are mainly supportive. Now let us talk about a little bit about the allied sciences: economics, literature, political science, sociology, medical science, psychology, philosophy, and geography. These are the generally allied sciences. This is not a very exclusive list. You can add many more subjects which are definitely help us in understanding history in a better manner, depending on our own area of research. For example, economics, the understanding of the economic tell us that the war in the past have mostly taken place for the possession of the fertile land. So there is an economic reason behind the war. It is always the people, like in take the case of in India, it is always the people from the Central Asia who attack India, because there is an economic reason behind that. India had a huge prosperous land, and Indian people, Indian king, they were not very interested in taking their army and attacking Central Asia, because there was hardly anything to gain. It is mostly a mountainous region. But people from those mountainous regions, they always looked at India as a land of prosperity, and they gathered and marshaled their army and attack India so that that fertile land can be captured. So there is an economic reason behind a lot of historical event, and our understanding of economic will make us to have a better understanding of history. Political science, I have already explained. Understanding the nature of political structure will help you to understand history in a better manner. Literature and history, they are interconnected in a way that a lot of historical character and the historical event, they give a kind of food for thought for the literary recreation. For example, there are a number of novels written on the historical character like Chhatrapati Shivaji and Maharana Pratap. So the literary person, they pick up the character and they pick up the event. For example, there is a very famous novel on the third battle of Panipat, that is in Marathi by Vishwas Patil. It is also translated in English. So, the third battle of Panipat, which is a historical event, the battle was fought between Marathas and Ahmad Shah Abdali. That is an important historical event, has provided a resource material for the literary writing, like the novel. There are a number of novels written on Peshwas, like Madhavrao Peshwa, a very famous novel by Ranjit Desai called Swami. Well, okay. Now, as history provides material to literature, literature also help us in the sense, the student of history. Literature also enable the student of history to take deeper insight into the psyche of the historical character, because there are a lot of things which are not recorded in history, and it is a literary person, the creative writer, he have a capacity to go deeper into the psyche of the historical character and portray him in the literary writing. So whatever written in literature is obviously not historical fact, but it does give you perspective. इससे आपका दृष्टिकोण जरूर चेंज होता है, नया दृष्टिकोण जरूर मिलता है इतिहास की तरफ देखने का. It does sharpen your perspective, the way you look at history, sharpen, broaden and enrich. Well, then comes sociology. Sociology, sociology generally studies society. So how the society has evolved to the present state, if you want to understand it in a better manner, we have to considerably go into the past. For example, let us say caste system. Caste system is still a prevalent institution which has survived over centuries. Now, in order to understand the caste in a better manner, you may have to go considerably into the past and try to understand how the caste has evolved over a period of time, how it has functioned in a positive manner, and how it has been used in a negative manner to discriminate against the certain group of people. So that is how the sociology and history is interconnected. In order to a sociology student, in order to understand the caste, he may have to go into the past. A student of history, he will not his understanding of history will not be better if he only studies the past, but he has to always connect with the present, like we have studied in the last class, that history is an unending dialogue between the past and present. So that is how if you are a student of history, you can still understand the functioning of the caste, not only through the textbook, not only from the ancient references, but how it is functioning now also. Medical sciences, you find certain ancient remains, you find certain bone, you find certain skeletons, and in order to understand during which period those particular animals or those particular human have survived, what kind of diet those people used to take, what was the reason behind the death, was there the mass scale death due to some epidemic. In order to get that knowledge, you may have to take the help of medical scientists. It is a medical scientist, medical science, which will study those bone structure and tell you exactly when the death occurred, approximately maybe. When did what was the reason of the death? By understanding the composition of the bone structure, even the medical science can tell us what used to be the diet of those people. There is something called carbon dating method that is used in chemistry and medical sciences. Whenever the living organism dies, the carbon in the body, it start decomposing, and depending on the condition of the decomposing carbon, one can try to understand the period of that the period of the person or the animal existed. For example, let us say if I die now, the carbon in my body will start decomposing, and maybe 500 years later, if somebody finds my skeleton, they can try to understand by my bone structure what was the reason behind my death, and what used to be in my diet, and what was my age, if I had any disease, and all that can be one can try to understand. So in a way, medical science help us to understand the history in a better manner. If there are mass death, by medical science can tell us if there had been epidemic and what was the reason behind the death. Well, now next comes psychology. You know, psychology is a important discipline which tells us about the way human being thinks and how that thought influences his behavior. So certain knowledge of psychology gives us an understanding that why the people in the particular region behave in a different manner, and why the people in the particular region behave in the different manner. Your situation influences your psychology, and that is the reason, just example I gave you, that the people of Central Asia, they always looked at India as a prospective area of conquest, and Indian people, they generally not looked at the Central Asia as an area of conquest for a variety of reasons. And this is an indicative of the particular psychology which has developed because they stayed in the particular geographical region. Why did the Britishers develop a psychology that they can go to Asia and Africa and conquer that area, and what that kind of psychology did not take root into the Indian mindset or Indian psyche? If you understand this kind of psychological reason, your understanding of history will be definitely better. So that is how psychology and history are interconnected. Philosophy. Definitely, philosophical thought influences our behavior. Our behavior influences our action, and history is nothing but the record of the human actions. For example, India generally believed to be a very tolerant country because India had a philosophical heritage of seeing God in each and everything, everybody. India had a philosophical heritage of being very tolerant about the religious belief. You know, that is the reason there is a very famous sentence in Rig Veda, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. That means the God is, the truth is only one, but the learned people, they call it by the different name. So, you know, we have that inherited tradition of being very tolerant to the different religious viewpoint. And that is the reason India has found shelter. In India, people have taken shelter when they were persecuted abroad, like, you know, Persian and Jews, and so on, Shias, and so on and so forth. So, you know, the philosophy, it influences history, and if you understand the philosophy, you can understand the history in a better manner. Geography, obviously, understanding of the geography gives you a better perspective of history. Why Panipat have become an important battlefield? Because of its peculiar geographical location. If somebody who is coming from the northwest and after conquering Punjab, if that person, that invader, has to come into the Delhi and Ganga Yamuna area, he has to cross Panipat, because Punjab to Delhi, the road passes through Panipat, because on the one side there is a desert and on the other side there is a mountain. So, you know, from Punjab, no general will march his army over the mountain which are snow covered during the many months in the year, and no general will march his army through the desert where it is difficult to get food and fodder. So he has to go through Panipat, and the ruler of Delhi, he generally thought that if the invader is crossing Panipat, Panipat is around 70 miles from Delhi, he will be coming very close to my capital, and it's better if I stop him there so that my capital and Ganga Yamuna area is safer. And that is the reason he marshaled his army and tried to stop him at Panipat. And that is the reason Panipat has become an important battleground in Indian history. And who will be ruling over Delhi is usually decided in the battlefield of Panipat. So there is a geographical reason why the Marathas could very successfully fight against the huge army of the Mughal, because of peculiar geographical location. That is, we have this Western Ghat and Sahyadri and the Chhatrapati Shivaji and his Mawalas. They have made a very effective use of those geographical location by using guerrilla tactics against the very powerful, very strong Mughal army, and they could continue to fight for almost 27 years against the Mughals. So, you know, the geography has shaped the history, and until unless, you know, Jadunath Sarkar, one of the famous historian, we will be studying about him, he had that habit of going to the geographical places about which he has to write history, and he wrote the book Shivaji and His Time. And for that book, he traveled to the many places where Chhatrapati Shivaji and his Marathas, they fought wars against the Adil Shah and they fought war against the Mughal. So, you know, in order to understand the history better, the understanding of geography is helpful. In fact, geography has one of the important factor which have shaped the history. Then there are auxiliary sciences like, you know, archaeology. Archaeology means just finding the old remains of coins, then monuments, and then you know, idol. All these are coming under the archaeology, but within the archaeology also numismatic have developed another science. Numismatic, I already told you, that is the study of coin. So by understanding coin, lot many things can be studied. For example, if the quality of coin is pure, if it is made of a pure gold, you can understand that the financial condition of the king who is issuing the coin in the pure gold is much better. If the the king is not in a position to issue the gold coin, and only the copper coin or the silver coins are found, one can you know, understand that probably his economic condition was not very well. If the coin is very well shaped and have a very nicely carved picture, that means the artistic development was very high. If the coins are found abroad, that means probably our country had a relation with those country, trade relation, merchants might be taking coins. All right, if the large number of coins are found at one place, probably merchants were staying at that place and they were carrying those coins. So, you know, the coin can be very helpful in understanding history. Then calligraphy is the study of handwriting. there is a science of understanding the character of the person by the way he writes. So this is also very, very helpful. There are experts who understand the handwriting. There are experts who understand which way the particular letter is written by a particular person. For example, let us take an example. For example, Nana Fadnavis was one of the important character in the Maratha history. So if somebody gives you the letter and say that this is written by Nana Fadnavis, how will you taste it? There will be an expert. There are an expert. You can go to them and give the letter to them and ask them, do you understand this? And by his expertise, by his experience, by looking at the writing, he will say, yes, this is a letter by Nana Fadnavis, because Nana Fadnavis used to write Sri in a particular way, and this is written in a particular way, and there is a seal. This is the seal of Nana Fadnavis. So, understanding of handwriting is a very important contribution to understanding of history. Then epigraphy. You know what is epigraph? Epigraph is something that is engraved on the metal sheet, engraved on the rock, engraved on the metal pillar. Those writings which are engraved on the metal or metal, wooden or stone surface are generally called epigraphs. And understanding of those epigraphs are also very important. A lot of things about Ashoka has came to us through those epigraphical material. Like, Ashoka have his own epigraphs spread all over the country, and it was James Prinsep, who was a British person, who first time could read Ashoka's inscription. Those were written in Brahmi script, and before him, nobody could read Brahmi. He was the first person who could read Brahmi, and a lot of information about Ashoka has come to us through those epigraphical material. So, epigraphy is one of the important auxiliary science of history. Philology is study of languages. Languages, it goes on changing over a period of time. For example, the particular word, when we say mouse nowadays, it is this mouse. It is this mouse that comes to our mind. But when I was a kid, I was not familiar with this mouse because computer came much later. And during that time, if somebody said mouse, that means the normal mouse animal, that small animal that is generally found. That will come to my mind. So the languages goes on changing, and you need to interpret languages in a different manner. All right, and there are certain experts who can do this. Sanskrit words, they have different meaning. English words, they have a different meaning. They use at a different places, and at a time you may have to take the help of philology, that is the expert in the languages. Graphology is a person who can. Graphology is a art of reading graph. Graph in one page, graph can give you a lot of information, but there are certain graphs which are very complicated and which probably untrained person like me may not able to understand. So graphology is a study of studying graphs. Sigillography is an interesting. Sigillography is a study of seal. In Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, large number of mm, mud seal had been found, and what those seal are trying to communicate to us is generally not known to us. And there are experts who are working on it. They are trying to understand the languages. They are trying to understand the script. So sigillography is study of seal, and then anthropology is the study of human being. Generally the anthropological material or anthropological methods are used when we don't generally have a written record. For example, there are large number of tribes in India whose written history is not available. So we need to try to understand their history through their oral narration. And for that purpose, anthropology is helpful. Anthropology generally go and stay with the people, and then they try to understand their history, their belief system, their way of life, their institution of marriage through the oral narratives, through the stories and legends and songs. So this is also important auxiliary sciences that makes our understanding of history better. So here our discussion on auxiliary and allied sciences are over. If you have any doubt, you can ask me.